Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. We are back with more Total War Warhammer 3. Now today we're going to start a series that's going to hopefully help you guys learn each faction. This is our beginner guide series. And today, of course, we're starting with Ku'gath Plaguefather, because I know a lot of people were struggling with Nurgle since launch, and honestly, it's not as hard as you may think. So we're going to take a look, and of course, I play on Legendary very hard, but you can really transfer any of these, tips to your campaigns on any difficulty. Okay, we're once again on the campaign map. So the first thing you want to see is, of course, you have your usual recruit easy army to fight, and of course you've got your main settlement. Let's take a look at the building options. Now, one thing that people mostly are confused on are how Nurgle buildings activate. You pay a lump sum to pull it easy. You pay a lump sum, and then once that's built, every 4 turns, which you can see here, it cycles to tier 2, 3, 4, etc, etc. You can affect this change by, again, certain texts and buildings, or even the commandments. In the cases of the Plague Flesh Poppies, you can lower the cycle time by going to infrastructure and purchasing a carnivorous compost. This can give you up to a -2 cycle time for basic military buildings. Another thing you can do as well is early on you can get Cis growth, which is another -1 to your cycle time of Plague Flesh Poppies buildings. So there's a few things you can do to adjust the cycle time. Now, why would you want to cycle faster? Because, when you cycle faster, it means you get past the higher tiers quicker. Well, it allows you to have more summable units. Every single time this cycles through, you get one summable unit. So, for example, you get one Plague Bearer from there, another Plague Bearer from there, and Plague Bearer from tier 3, and then Exalted from the others. So you're cycling through, constantly getting your recruitment pool up and up, and just storing just in case you need to get more units. Let's talk about Ku'gath's skill tree. So the ones you want to go for and what my recommendations are. So the first line I would recommend is going down to get Lightning Strike. This will allow you to deal with any multiple armies you may come across, be it dwarfs, chaos, trolls, or ogres rather, and the like. After that, I would slowly go through his unique tree. The prioritization for me is Champion's Decay for that hero capacity, for Plague Ridden because you want to get a couple of these, as well as getting Christian Abundance. While you're waiting for these to unlock, I would say go down the self buff tree for that, because you want to go grab that Pestilent Decay for that AoE damage while he's in melee. After this, I will then go towards his leadership or his unit-specific bonuses to then go for Virulent Contagion. This allows for you to reduce the melee defense of 5 units within 30 meters of each other. It's only 2 uses, but it's quite good to stack on with his magic, Miasma of Pestilence, or rather the Nurgle magic. But after that, if you got any spare stuff, you can go for the the magic tree line. You don't necessarily have to go to Lightning Strike. If you don't want Lightning Strike, you don't have to. Then I'd stick to the same order, but go for, but then just go down with the tree instead of the Lightning Strike one. I'll always get Route Marcher though, just for that 5% campaign movement range. Okay, let's go talk about the Plague Ridden. So the Plague Ridden is your mage. You want to be using this guy, the Plague Ridden, for all your magic. I won't really use Ku'gath unless you invest in his magic, I guess, early. Why wouldn't I? Well, mostly because of Children of Nurgle. Children of Nurgle is an AoE heal that affects anyone as long as the Plague Ridden is casting the spell. It's only for Nurgle magic. But yes, so what I would do is spam out a overcast Miasma of Pestilence. This turns Miasma of Pestilence from a single unit to an AoE melee attack reduction. As you reducing the attack, you're as well as healing your units and therefore overall mitigating a lot more damage. And of course later on you can go for everything which is pretty standard, Blight Boil and Fleshy Abundance. In terms of this, he has 3 choices: Locus of Contagion, Locus of Fecundity, and Locus of Virulence. I had to go for Locus of Fecundity for my first one, for that heal. It's 3 uses, another AoE heal, great. And then you can go for your second one, have the Locust Contagion or Virulence, or even another Fecundity if you feel like you want even more heals. I put him on a Rockfly so he can fly about using his magic and sticking close to my blob. A quick note on the Cultists of Nurgle, I always have one in my army, just mostly because at level 13 you can get Gates of Nurgle, and after you've got 3 points into Gates of Nurgle, you can get the Greater Gate of Nurgle, which allows you to summon Great Unclean Ones instead of Plague Bearers. So this is something you would want to get as soon as possible. Okay, let's go talk about what type of armies you want to be building as Nurgle. This is, again, a save that I've been streaming over on my Twitch channel, so this is a little bit later. So, in general, I would recommend having pretty much mostly Nurglings. You can add some other units if you really want to, but I think the majority of your army should always be Nurglings. With all the buffs you can get on them, for example, the upkeep reduction, lowering down to 50 upkeep per turn, just makes them some of the most value for money units in the Nurgle roster. You can constantly keep healing with the Lords and Ku'gath, and then they just tank everything. You will see it later on in this video when I show you some battle gameplay. One thing to note is I highly recommend trying to equip a Bruntos Battle Purge to every one of your Lords for that minus 20% upkeep for Nurgling units and recruitment cost for Nurgling units. This does stack with Ku'gath's Persistent Abundance ability, so it is a 45% reduction to the upkeep, making your Nurglings very cheap to recruit and upkeep. In terms of research, I typically go for anything that will buff up my Nurglings or anything that makes my buildings produce better. You can definitely pick up the army abilities, as well as also there are plague upgrades that you will want to probably pick up later on. Let's talk about the Plague Cauldron. Now, the Plague Cauldron is a lot bigger than what you might expect, so I won't be going through every single one in this video. I'll probably do a separate video later on. But to start off with things, I will tell you my most recommended base plague. Now, I typically like Plague Rot. Plague Rot early on allows you to summon a Nurgling unit when it spreads to territory. This is very good early on because you're moving through territories and you want to be collecting those Nurglings as soon as possible. So I'd be using Rot as just from the get-go. Other symptoms that I recommend picking up is, well, it's highly dependent on what you're going against. Against the Dwarfs, I like to pick up the Missile Strength, base weapon damage, or range and accuracy for against those Quarrelers. I don't think you will have much issue against their infantry because the Nurglings are so tanky. These are the most things that I use is Weeping Eyes and Brain Fog. Weeping Eyes and the Sweats. Both of them provide missile damage reduction and range and accuracy. Other ones you can be aware of is the armor reduction, plague duration, and the favor. This favor can actually be quite useful. If spread, you gain a bit of favor per spread or city that's gained it. It's quite good if you can get it to spread faster, which you can use the commandments and of course high contagious. Other stuff like that I like to use is the attrition while under siege. This can really bait out an enemy to either attack you or lose a lot more men in a settlement. Other than that, you do have recipes, which these recipes do require you to have the right symptoms and the plague to use. For example, the Crumbling Ague needs Plague Ague, Mucus Runs, and Pestilence. This will then provide you with the bonuses that are on the recipe. In terms of the recipe, I really do like the green pox for that growth plus 50 for Nurgling settlements. Nurgle settlements rather. It's quite a potent thing. Other than that, you can go for any of the others, which is like physical resistance, spell resistance, etc, etc. But I think the one that I like the most is green pox. Okay, let's talk about Nurgle in battles. I typically play Nurgle in a big blob. This is how I recommend you playing your games in as well. With the Nurglings rather, in around, if you stay in the AoE of the heals, you'll constantly keep regenerating health. Just let the enemy come to you, or you can move on forward if you really want to. In my case, I'm just kind of chilling here, but of course this is just for demonstration purposes, so ignore the fact that I'm letting Ku'gath get peppered down by arrows. But I'm just kind of waiting on the opponents to move on forward, and then, yeah. Here I come. I'm just going to move on up with my blob. and just tank all their shots. And this is what you do. You just sit in a big blob, activate all the AoEs, and let the opponents blob up against you, and then use your AoE spells against them. As you can see now that we've got the UI on, we can now see that they're not doing that much damage apart from Ku'gath, but again, as I said, this was for demonstration purposes only, and I wouldn't recommend putting Ku'gath in the front to get pounded by every single archer that the enemy has. We're just tanking all our damage and just healing up with any other spells we can. In this demonstration, I didn't have many magic to start off with, so it's a bit weaker, but nonetheless, it is still very strong, as you can see. You can see, even while fast forward and free speed in this battle, I still took minimal casualties, excluding Ku'gath, but we're going to ignore that. But in general, these type of armies just tank a lot of, attack while doing a lot of damage. This is the most optimal way I found out to playing Nurgle. Now let's finally talk about the campaign and the campaign expansion routes. Well, the first things first, you want to be taking out the ogres in the main province you start off with in the Cliffs of Death. Don't worry about losing Stormwrath Mountain to the dwarfs in Carrickdom, because you will then be able to take that back after you've dealt with the ogres. In terms of fighting off the dwarfs in Carrickdom, if they are camping out the armies inside Carrickdom, I recommend trying to ambush them outside it or bait them out with an ambush, letting them come out, and then crushing their army in a land battle. Carrickdom is a interesting map, whereas it's just 4 corridors that can really mess up with your blob, so I don't really recommend fighting them with a full army on the settlement, so definitely try and bait them out. After the dwarfs, I would consider taking on the chaos, or the warriors of chaos in the blood marshes. This is not too far off your main settlement, so you can keep it more secure. After that is your prerogative. Maybe Zinch, maybe Khorne if they come your direction, or maybe even further east in the Ogre Kingdoms. It is your prerogative to choose. Alrighty, that is all you need to know about Nurgle and the Nurgling forces. Now, if you do have any more questions, then do feel free to comment down below or ask me while I'm streaming. I'll answer them all. And if you did enjoy the video, then do consider subscribing and liking this so it gets out to more people. Other than that, I will be making more guides for every other faction in the game, so keep an eye on that, and I shall see you again next time. Bye bye.